Our selection will be Lean on You. Oh, 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 yeah. Let me lean on you. Oh, oh, yeah. Let me lean on you. Oh,
The oracles of the UCI. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober, and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as their children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth, therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you, to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Which is peace on Yahweh's holy Sabbath day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. What we're going to deal with on today's sermon is dealing with this new man. We know about getting our baptism and becoming a part of Yahshua's family, but this whole part of allowing the new man to be born out of the old is a process, and it is a lifelong process, but that process has to begin somewhere, and we have to allow that process to take root in us. Now, when we examine the topic of being renewed in the spirit of our mind, we must consider several things. Ephesians chapter 4 admonishes us not to walk in the vanity of our mind. It also tells us that our understanding becomes darkened because of the blindness of our hearts. We are warned to put off the former dealings and deal according to the new man, which after Elohim is created in righteousness and true holiness. If we examine ourselves and find that we still deal with the same things in the same manners that we did when we walked in all of the things of the world, how can we say that we have truly attempted to have a renewed mind in the spirit? We're going to begin today's sermon in Colossians chapter 3. Now, this is not an automatic process that, we get baptized and then everything just goes the way that we want it. It is a process. And in that process, we have to make sure that we don't go to far extremes where those extremes, at some point, we think that we have to get rid of everything that we once dealt with in our life before the word. And that's not according to Yahweh. See, what's going to happen is he's going to use all of those things, all of the skills, the abilities, the things that we've gone through. He's going to use those things later on in your walk to rebuild his kingdom. You have to consider, when we look at the coming out of Egypt and then setting up a kingdom from being straight servants and slaves. Well, you consider all of the things that are needed to rebuild that kingdom. So those are different people with different skills, with different abilities. They've gone through different things. Yahweh is going to use and need all of those things. The question that we have to deal with in our own heart and mind is if we are going to allow Yahweh to reformulate our own personal gifts, our own personal abilities to be used for the rebuilding of his kingdom. Because we all have things that we already knew how to do. We have things that was already there. Now, of course, before being in the word, we thought that every last one of those things was for us personally. Now, if you still allow all of those things to be just your personal things, then Yahweh doesn't get to use those things to build his kingdom. And then that then is not profitable unto Yahweh. So those things just have to be altered for the kingdom's sake. He's not going to take everything out of you. There are some people that have been through some very, very rough patches in their life. Yahweh gonna use that. We think that, okay, we come in the word, now we got to throw all of those things away. No. He gonna need that. The kingdom is going to be built by all different manner of individuals. There has to be soldiers. There has to be cooks. There has to be all of these different things. So he's not going to throw all of those things away. But you got to let him rearrange it so that it is profitable for his kingdom. Otherwise, it is of no use to him. Colossians chapter 3, and let's start that at verse 1.
If you then be risen with the Mashiach, seek those things which are above, where the Mashiach sits on the right hand of Elohim. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. For you are dead, and your life is hid with the Mashiach in Elohim.
Right, and do we consider that? And what ends up happening is, it's hard to the flesh don't just die. It is a constant killing off that has to happen with this old man. And what will happen is we'll learn some new things. We'll learn some things out of this book, but we'll still deal with it according to the mindset of the old man. And that will end up causing us some issues. We'll accept the new, but we'll put it in that same old bag, which is eventually going to tarnish the new understanding, because it's going to be shaped in the same foundation of that old misunderstanding that we were brought up with. Go ahead.
When the Mashiach, who is our life, shall appear, then shall you also appear with him in glory. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscences, and covetousness, which is idolatry.
So if we're going to mortify these things, we're going to kill these things off. We're going to make it to where these things are not the driving force within our lives. It doesn't mean that we won't have certain things that we have to deal with, but there's a difference between having something there and then having that thing drive you. That's something altogether different. Go ahead.
For which things sake the wrath of Elohim cometh on the children of disobedience, into which you also walked sometime, when you lived in them.
Mm-hmm.
But now you also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth.
Now, we can read this, but understand this right here gets very difficult at times to implement. And at some point, we have to get out our own way so that we can allow the word to take hold in our heart and our spirit. But now you also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. And what happens sometimes, we'll get angry and anything will fly out our mouth. And you can't unsay no words. See, when we was young, we used to say, I'll take that back. You can't take nothing back. You can't take nothing out of nobody's heart and out of their ears that you have already uttered out of your lips. This word says we are going to give an account for every idle word that proceed out of our mouth. So consider all of those things that we say when we angry, when we feeling a certain kind of way. We just feeling some kind of way that day. And anything set us off. We're going to have to answer for that. Go ahead.
Verse 9, lie not one to another, seeing that you have put off the old man with his deeds.
Right, because the way we grew up, lies had levels to it. They got white lies, which apparently ain't as bad as the black ones. You got little lies. According to this book, all liars are going to get thrown in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone. Not some liars, not a few liars. It said all liars. We have to understand what a lie is. It is a creation of the adversary himself. It says when he tells a lie, he tells his own. He the one that made it. He invented lying. And one thing you'll find out, whenever you use anything that belongs to somebody else, you owe them royalties. You can't just use somebody else's song and think it's okay. Now you got to pay them for that. Well, he invented lying. That's his. And every time you use it, you owe him. And consider owing somebody something, but y'all have not discussed the payment beforehand. You don't already used it. So now all the power is in his hand. Now you're doing post-negotiation. Those are the worst kind of negotiations ever in life. If you ever into a situation where you have already used whatever that is, and then they come after that to negotiate, you have zero power in the negotiation because you already used it. Go ahead.
And have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him, where there is neither Greek nor Yehudi, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond nor free, but the Mashiach is all and in all.
Mm-hmm.
Put on, therefore, as the elect of Elohim, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering.
Long-suffering. We have to consider the suffering that the Mashiach has endured for us. The suffering that even some of our forefathers have endured for us. And then even coming out of that, the suffering that some Euro-Gentiles who have absolutely no connection to the family of Israel, the suffering that they went through just to preserve and translate this book in English. Because some of their own folks didn't want it in English because they wanted to be able to rule over them and everybody else. So consider the suffering that other individuals have gone through for us to just be able to sit here and read this. Somebody paid a price for that. There were people who got burned alive because they were translating the Bible. And sometimes we don't see this book from one Sabbath to the next. Come to Sabbath, we can't even find the book. We got to lift up 5, 6, 7 things and go up under it to find the book. Go ahead.
Forbearing one another and forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even as the Mashiach forgave you, so also do you.
Right. So then we have a duty to at least be open-minded about some things. It is interesting to see people demand apologies from people that they've gotten into situations with, but they have forgotten that when they were in a situation and said something to somebody else, they didn't offer those people any apologies. But we swear something is then due to us. Go ahead.
And above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfectness. And let the peace of Elohim rule in your hearts, so the which also you are called in one body, and be you thankful. Let the word of the Mashiach dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Adonai.
Right. Sometimes I'll hear the songs that the choir sing on the Sabbath. I'll be in the middle of the week and find myself humming them songs. They say you're supposed to admonish one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. We have to understand that everything that you let inside your ears and your eyes, those things start to affect your thought process. If you listen to a bunch of angry music, you're going to be an angry individual. You listen to murder, death, kill all day, that's what you're going to be thinking about doing, murder, death, kill. So first time somebody say something to you, you're ready to swing. And you can't figure out why. Because you listen to murder, death, kill all day. Go ahead.
And whatsoever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Adonai Yahshua, giving thanks to Elohim and the Father by him. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as it is fit in the Adonai. Husbands, love your wives, and be not bitter against them.
What would cause a husband to be bitter against his wife? See, if the wives are submitting themselves unto their husbands, if verse 18 is happening, why is there verse 19? What would cause the husband to be even bitter? See, this is something that we have to then consider. But this happens on two totally different levels. You have the natural level of the husband and wife, but then understand that we are all married unto Yahweh. So then we have to then ask that same question that a man would ask his natural wife. All of us in Israel, men and women, have to then ask ourselves, why would our husband and father Yahweh be bitter against us? So women, you got two bitter questions to ask. Brothers, you got one. But everybody got a bitter question to ask. Why would somebody be bitter against you? What have you done to cause bitterness? Go ahead.
Children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing unto the Adonai. Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged. Servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in singleness of heart, fearing Elohim.
Right, not with eye service as men pleasers, which is showing or giving the outward display of a good walk, but then still murmuring behind all of that. Yahweh knows the difference. And we may fool a lot of men, but not one day did we fool Yahweh. Not 1 hour, not 1 minute. Go ahead.
And whatsoever you do, do it heartily as to the Adonai and not unto men, knowing that of the Adonai you shall receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Adonai Elohim. But he that does wrong shall receive for the wrong which he has done, and there's no respect of persons.
Right. So then when we start going through things and we start having issues, it is amazing how quickly we forget the things that we've done. It says, but he that does wrong shall receive for the wrong which he has done. And it is actually a blessing if we receive that wrong in this life on this side of the wall. Because otherwise you got to pay for that on the other side. You don't want nothing left on your account on the other side. Being forgiven is one thing. Having atonement for your sins is something altogether different. So those things that we suffer are putting us back in the right place with Yahweh Elohim. That is a blessing. But it's hard to look at that sometimes as a blessing. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 1.
Corinthians chapter 1 and 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 1. Saul, called to be an apostle of the Yahshua the Mashiach through the will of Elohim, and Sosthenes our brother, unto the church of Elohim which is at Corinth, to them that are sanctified in the Mashiach Yahshua, called to be saints, with all that in every place call upon the name of Yahshua the Mashiach our Adonai, both theirs and ours.
Right. So there's a whole lot of things that by changing the name of the Mashiach, a lot of baptisms, a lot of things have been made foul. A lot of things have been, the righteousness of it has been taken away because of inputting this name of Jesus or Jesus, which eventually became Jesus, and then Jesus is how people pronounce it. But if you run into a Hispanic brother and ask him, his name will be spelled just like this, Jesus. Ask him his name. He said Jesus. Zeus is the principal god of the heathens. And wherever the colonization took place, they went and input their names and their likenesses on all the paintings. They put their likeness on the names. They put their names. And now we're walking around reading a history book of the Hebrews, calling on a Greek-Latin hybrid name. Now, if we open the African history book, we would expect to hear a bunch of African names. You open a Chinese history book, you're going to hear a bunch of Chinese names. So how you open a Hebrew book and run into a name that ain't even a full Greek or Latin, and we think that's okay? It is strange that you would open a Hebrew book and run into Greek names. That's not normal. I mean, it should very well stick out if you're reading a Chinese history book and all of a sudden you run across somebody named Bob. How you get in here? Where Bob come from? And who's Bob's daddy? Who decided to name him Bob? You got Wang Lee and then Bob. Wait a minute. So Wang Lee gave birth to Bob? Something wrong here. Right. And something is wrong here. Go ahead.
Verse 3. Grace be unto you and peace from Elohim our Father and from the Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach. I thank my Elohim always on your behalf for the grace of Elohim which is given you by Yahshua the Mashiach, that in everything you are enriched by him in all utterance and in all knowledge, even as the testimony of the Mashiach was confirmed in you, so that you come behind in no gift, waiting for the coming of our Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach, who shall also confirm you unto the end, that you may be blameless in the day of our Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach. Elohim is faithful, by whom you were called unto the fellowship of his Son, Yahshua the Mashiach, our Adonai. Now I beseech you, brethren, by the name of our Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach, that you all speak the same thing, and that there be no divisions among you.
All right, if you're going to speak the same thing, then that's the same doctrine, that you all speak the same doctrine and that there be no divisions among you. But when we accept bits and pieces of the word, and then we start to get various teachings from all other places, now it has caused the issue with us being able to speak the same thing. Because some people are getting their food from over here. Some people getting their food from over there. Some people getting their food from over there. Then all of a sudden, when it comes time to speak, we're not speaking the same thing. And you have to be able to recognize when something comes out of somebody's mouth and say, wait a minute, that right there sounds like a different doctrine. Where'd that come from? Because we didn't learn that here. Where you learn that doctrine at? See, we have to be able to recognize that. Right at the point when this serpent says, "You shall not surely die." At that point, the woman knew, okay, wait a minute. This is a different doctrine. Because that ain't what my husband said. But when there's now not a meeting of the minds, now we got two different doctrines. You don't have the same thing. So what does that mean? Now there's a division in the house because you got two different doctrines in the house. Now the question is, which doctrine is going to prevail? One say don't eat, other one said you won't surely die. Two different doctrines. Which one is going to prevail in the house? That's the $1 million question. Go ahead.
But that you be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment. Verse 11. For it has been declared unto me of you, my brethren, by them which are of the house of Chloe, that there are contentions among you. Now this I say, that every one of you saith, I am of Saul, and I of Apollos, and I of Cephas, and I of the Mashiach.
So now there are cliques in the church. See? There are cliques in the church where we hang out with these people. And the problem with a lot of the hanging out is people start picking up other people's thought processes, other people's likes, other people's dislikes. And if you get too strong in the clique-based worship, now everybody got to dislike whoever this person dislikes. Well, if I don't like this person, y'all can't like this person either. Oh, we in a fraternity up in here? But you what? I've been in the Word for years, and I've seen this develop before. Go ahead.
You'll say even in the midst of that dislike, there has to be some sort of discord. At some point, somebody should be stopping and say, why are you talking to me about that brother or sister? What's the problem? Why don't you go talk to that brother or sister?
Because we think we're hearing a secret.
I'm going to tell you something, but don't tell nobody.
They told 5 other people that same thing.
I'm going to tell you something, but don't tell nobody.
And then those people went to somebody else.
I'm going to tell you something, but don't tell nobody.
Right. Now, 30 people in the room, and all of them done heard different versions of the same thing, but all of them saying,
don't tell nobody.
Right. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Is the Mashiach divided? Was Saul crucified for you? Or were you baptized in the name of Saul?
Right. Now, we got teachings out here that say baptism is a baptism of the word, that you don't even get baptized with water. And this is one of the biggest Hebrew Israelite congregations around, and not one of them baptized. Not one. Got churches all over the United States and outside the country. Not one baptized individual. That's the door. That's the beginning of your walk. Go ahead.
I thank Elohim that I baptized none of you but Crispus and Gaius.
Right. Because he didn't want to be a part of all this separation. Oh, I'm with this person. I'm with that person. See, this is what happens when the hangout portion gets bigger than the walking in the word. Now, they're more concerned with who they hanging out with than the actual things of the word. So now they've caused divisions within themselves within the word. Go ahead.
Least then he should say that I had baptized in mine own name, and I baptized also the household of Stephanus. Besides, I know not whether I baptized any other. For the Mashiach sent me not to baptize, but to preach the gospel, not with wisdom of words, lest the cross of the Mashiach should be made of non-effect.
So as he's setting up these organizations, he's setting up these churches, then he's putting them in the place to go and do the necessary things to build the church. Because he might stay in one place for 3, 4, 5 months, maybe a year and a half, and then move to somewhere else. So he's putting people in place to do those things and take care of those responsibilities. Go ahead.
For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved it is the power of our Elohim. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Has not Elohim made foolish the wisdom of this world?
Right. And if you want to hear some interesting stuff, you go on History Channel and watch them ancient aliens. Boy, I tell you, they take everything and it turns into an alien or extraterrestrial. They will read parts of the Bible and they turn the ark into extraterrestrial. It's a machine that was inside the ark. It was a weather machine. They deal with anything that they encounter as an extra, because they can't say it's God. Anytime they say God, they make sure they put an S on God's, because they can't deal with anything spiritual. Everything has to be from their science. It has to be explained in a physical, educational way, and it becomes very difficult for people to deal with this word when they need to shape it according to their own knowledge and wisdom. So they can't allow Yahweh's word to be his word. It has to be something that they can scientifically explain with their own knowledge. Go ahead.
For after that, in the wisdom of Elohim, the world by wisdom knew not Elohim. It pleased Elohim by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. For the Yehudis require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom.
The Yehudis require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom. It's a wonderful thing for us that the Euro Gentiles write down everything. That's how we know all the stuff on the slave voyages. We don't know that because of nothing we did. Like, we handed down an oral tradition. We got spread all over the place. But you know what helped us? The Gentiles wrote it down. Said we picked up 500 slaves here. When we got to this part, we had 472. All right, well, wait a minute. I can count. What happened from 500 to 472? What happened here? Oh, yeah, them fell off the side or got thrown off the side. Got somewhere else. Okay, these guys are a problem. When they got to their final destination, it's 350 slaves. Wait a minute now. You left with 500. You showed up with this many. We know that because of their documentation. Go ahead.
Verse 23. But we preach the Mashiach crucified unto the Yehudis a stumbling block, and unto the Greeks foolishness. But unto them which are called, both Yehudis and Greeks, the Mashiach, the power of Elohim, and the wisdom of Elohim. Because the foolishness of Elohim is wiser than men, and the weakness of Elohim is stronger than men. For you see your calling, brethren, how that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called.
Right. Not many wise men after the flesh are called. Why? Because it's difficult to teach somebody who think they already know. Everything you trying to teach them, they say, oh, no, I already know that. Oh, no, I know this right here. So before you even get to a point, they already done tuned out. Because they think they know already. And my elder cut me up with that one day. He was saying something and it was sounding just like some other stuff that he had said before. And right when I got ready to walk out of the room, he went on a whole nother level, and I turned around and looked at him, and he was like, yeah, you thought you knew what I was talking about, didn't you, boy? Sit down. That took care of that business. So every time he started talking, I sit down. That man had been teaching 30-something years before I walked in the door. I sit down. Go ahead, bro.
But Elohim hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And Elohim hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty.
So those that have mighty letters behind their name, that thing don't mean nothing to Yahweh. Because the things of Yahweh are the things of the Spirit. It ain't textbook driven. You can read all day and still won't see it. You can sleep with the book on top of your head. You can soak the book in your bathtub and just get all in there. You ain't going to see it until Yahweh wants you to see it. Go ahead.
and base things of the world, and things which are despised, has Elohim chosen, yea, and things which are not, to bring to naught things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence. But of him are you in the Mashiach Yahshua, who of Elohim is made unto us wisdom, and righteousness, and sanctification, and redemption, that, according as it is written, he that glorieth, let him glory in the Adonai.
All right, let's keep going. Go to chapter 2.
And I, brethren, when I came to you, came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of Elohim. For I determined not to know anything among you, save Yahshua the Mashiach and him crucified. And I was with you in weakness, and in fear, and in much trembling.
And I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. But to some people, that lessens their ability to hear the word. Because when people proclaim to be great ones, those are the ones we want to hear and follow. When we find out that it's just regular men like us that Yahweh has chosen, now some of us have an attitude. Because we come from that place where we hear people say every week, I talked to God last night. So then we start getting accustomed to that. And we start building people up on the pedestal because they talk to God every night. Next thing you know, we imagine and we talk to God too. Now everything what happened to us, well, God showed me this. God talked to me. See, now that imagination taken off. But we're still doing all the same things that we were doing before. How does the new man ever take root? Go ahead.
And my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power.
Right. And if we hear the right articulate people talking, man, we like that. Before you know it, they done killed off 100,000 of us by some articulate words. Because it sound good. I think we underestimate the power of the adversary, the devil. Consider if, and what made me think about it is watching this ancient alien stuff that they put on there, because everything is extraterrestrial. But, and all they deal with is some extraterrestrial coming to these other nations at different times and helping them with technology that they would not have otherwise had. And quite frankly, I really don't have an issue with that. Because consider something. When you deal with what's written in this book, you have, as soon as Daniel prayed, an angel was sent to him, but then also an evil angel was sent to stop that angel. So consider then, there might be evil angels that have helped people do all kinds of things. Lucifer said right off the rip, if you worship me, I shall give you all these things. Well, just like you ain't going to deal with Yahweh, face to face, you're going to deal with an angel, then Lucifer going to send his people. So I really don't have an issue with that whatsoever. It says there's spiritual wickedness in high places that we have to wrestle against. Now, the question is, are we going to limit the power of our angel in helping us fight that fight? Because although Yahweh said a bunch of wonderful things about Moshe, because he didn't get them boys circumcised, that angel was about to kill him. So he'll say a bunch of wonderful stuff about you. He'll go ahead and put you in the path to do some wonderful things. But don't do what you're supposed to do, and he's going to take all that back. Go ahead.
1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 5. That your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of Elohim. Howbeit, we speak wisdom among them that are perfect, yet not the wisdom of this world, nor of the princes of this world that come to naught. But we speak the wisdom of Elohim in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom, which Elohim ordained before the world unto our glory, which none of the princes of this world knew. For had they known it, they would not have crucified the Adonai of glory.
Right. So if the people say that they know and they believe all of these things, then there should be action connected to the belief that they say they have. When you believe, it's certain things you either do or don't do. When that angel, Gabriel says, all right, after this, now I got to go fight with the prince of Grecia. These angels that are then running these evil empires to try their best to destroy the children of Israel, Yahweh makes sure that his angels are going to protect and preserve the children of Israel. Because if not, you have to understand, we would have been long killed off by now. We talking about Lucifer with all the money and power and influence that he has, and he's got all his people following him. They could have killed us off in one whop long time ago. And it was even easier when we all stayed in the same place. But Yahweh not going to let it happen. And as long as we don't walk outside the hedge of protection that Yahweh has for us, we're going to be all right. It was like before they went to go to war, they had to go and prepare the ark, and the ark went before them. But when they did something they didn't have no business doing, Joshua told them, don't go. Yahweh ain't with you. There are times in Moshe, they said, oh, y'all done messed up. Y'all better sit down. Yahweh not with you now. Said, no, we're going to go anyway. You're going to go and die. And how many times do we have to encounter the same thing? There's something wrong with us if we turn around and keep doing the same things and expect a different result. Go ahead.
Verse 9. But as it is written, I have not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which Elohim has prepared for them that love him.
Mm-hmm.
But Elohim has revealed them unto us by his Spirit. For the Spirit searches all things, yea, the deep things of Elohim. For what man knows the things of a man, save the spirit of man which is in him? Even so the things of Elohim knoweth no man, but the Spirit of Elohim. Now we have received, not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of Elohim, that we might know the things that are freely given to us of Elohim. Which things also we speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teacheth, but which the Holy Spirit teacheth, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. But the natural man received not the things of the Spirit of Elohim.
Right, and you wonder why there is a fight to get certain thought processes in people's head. The natural part of them fight against the spirit. And it is something that has always been there. It is something that we were told in the beginning. The spirit fights against the flesh. Those two are enemies of one another. So if you allow the flesh in you to multiply, it is going to always win against the spirit. Because you're dealing with more of the things of the flesh, the spirit don't have a chance. So the spirit is trying to get certain things to be brought forth in your life, but you still bring forth the flesh and set it in front of the spirit, and then the flesh is going to win. And then those spiritual things are never going to be able to take root. Go ahead.
For they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned.
Because they are spiritually discerned, no matter how much natural wisdom he or she has, they won't be able to understand it. How many highly educated people you've gone to and talked to them about this word, and they couldn't figure it out? And they're looking at you like you speaking some kind of foreign language. How difficult is this? We talking. All right, let me give you the simplest part of it. They can't figure it out because it's spiritually discerned. Their natural wisdom means absolutely nothing. Go ahead.
But he that is spiritual judges all things, yet he himself is judged of no man. For who hath known the mind of the Adonai, that he may instruct him? But we have the mind of the Mashiach.
All right, let's go to Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10, and let's read verses 17 through 37.
Verse 17. And the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Adonai, even the devils are subject unto us through your name. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven.
And the 70 returned again with joy. Now they happy, saying, Adonai, even the devils are subject unto us through your name. Now, you have to consider how many times you're going to hear through your name, and where, of course, they put Lord Jesus, and it's Adonai Yahshua. Consider the power. They have power over demons through the name of Yahshua. They didn't have power over demons in the name of Jesus. That ain't the name they called on. See, that's something that people do not consider. They don't have power over demons in that name. So consider that. Go ahead.
Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Notwithstanding in this rejoice not, that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice, because your names are written in heaven.
Right. So he's already telling these 70 that you have the wrong joy in your spirit. You join over what power you have, and not that your names are written in heaven. You're rejoicing over the wrong thing. Go ahead.
In that hour Yahshua rejoiced in spirit and said, I thank you, O Father, Adonai of heaven and earth, that you have hid these things from the wise and prudent, and have revealed them unto babes.
Have revealed them unto babes. Go ahead.
Even so, Father, for so it seemed good in your sight.
It seemed good in the sight of Elohim to hide the things from the wise and give them unto babes. But you'll find out that babes deal in a certain way. See? Believe it or not, the babes will accept things and accept change more than the wise. Go ahead.
All things are delivered to me of my Father, and no man knows who the Son is but the Father, and who the Father is but the Son, and he to whom the Son will reveal him. And he returned him unto his disciples, and said privately, Blessed are the eyes which see the things that you see. For I tell you that many prophets and kings have desired to see those things which you see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which you hear, and have not heard them.
Right. So do we consider how blessed we are that we have heard things that people have paid to try to have the opportunity to understand? When I was little, I used to look at those Indiana Jones movies, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Their whole thing is about going and stealing all of these artifacts from Solomon's temple, to go and steal the things of Yahweh. These were the biggest blockbuster movies of their day. And they were all about stealing the things that belong to you. Trying to find the Ark of the Covenant. So you think we're talking about a Hollywood production that they put millions into? You don't think that those people want that? You think that they put millions in something that they really don't even care about? No, when they spent all the time to write about it, and they spent all the money into it, they're letting you know what is important unto them. They have desired to know these things. And you flip through the channels, and they can will go down through Daniel and break down all of these things, and then Yahweh completely hide from them who the true children of Israel are. They'll have all the knowledge up to here and then hit a brick wall and can't pass that brick wall for nothing. Because the blindness in their heart won't let them cross that line. He'll let them get always like a little electric fence. Once you shock an animal 1 or 2 times with that electric fence, take care of the business. Power can be off for the next 30 years. They ain't going past that fence. Yeah. That leg twisted over there. I ain't going over there. That's going to take care of the business. Go ahead.
Verse 25. And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempted him, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?
Mm-hmm.
He said unto him, What is written in the law? How readeth you?
Right. Now, obviously, this wasn't read on Sunday morning. First of all, he didn't ask, what should I do to go to heaven? He said, what shall I do that I may attain unto eternal life? Then he started talking about the commandments. What is written in the law? What we heard on Sunday morning is that all the law was nailed to the cross, that we don't have to do anything. Now, this is what affects us when we hear the real word. Because we got, on the left side of our brain, we got that lie that we heard on Sunday morning. God ain't mad with you. You don't have to do anything. You ain't got to change nothing. He accepts you as you are. Then you come in this word and find out, oh no, I got to make some changes. Now the new man is fighting the old man. And sometimes we act like we breaking up the fight, but we throw a punch for the old man.
Y'all stop. Oh, wait a minute. Don't do that. Y'all break it up.
Wait a minute. Did you just bowl the new man? Did you just hit? You trying to make the old man win? Right. Go ahead.
And he answering said, You shall love the Adonai your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm. And that's a very, very powerful statement. We don't understand how deep and how many law, statutes, and judgments you have to understand to be able to do that. Now that sounds real good. But you just don't implement that without having some form of understanding of this word. To love your neighbor as yourself, to do all of those things, it takes some form of understanding of his law. But what did he say before he even started? What says the law? So if he is explaining how to attain eternal life by what's written in the law, how's somebody else going to tell you that the law is done away with? And he's explained eternal life by it. Somebody lying. And do we have the spiritual fortitude to call out the liar? Go ahead.
And he said unto him, You have answered right. This do, and you shall live. But he, willing to justify himself, said unto Yahshua, And who is my neighbor? And Yahshua answering said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side.
Right. So the man is wounded. The priest passed by on the other side. He don't want to be defiled with the blood of this man. So now the law has caused him not to help his brother. Now I don't want to be defiled. Remember the chief priests, as they beating Yahshua, they saying, oh, no, we don't want to have any blood on. We about to go and keep the feast. But they've already condemned an innocent man to death, but they still think they're going to keep the feast. You see the blindness in the heart? That they really thought they were going to the feast. No, you're not. I mean, you're going to get a certificate of attendance, but you're not going to pass the class. That's something altogether different. Go ahead.
And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, and passed by on the other side.
Passed by on the other side. So they didn't just walk by him. They crossed the street. At least I'll be dirty. Right? Go ahead.
But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion on him.
The Samaritans don't deal with the children of Israel. They were a split nation, divided into a northern and a southern kingdom. They don't deal with each other. So the one who doesn't deal with them was more neighborly than their own brethren. That's the whole point of the matter. The person who was supposed to have indignation, the Samaritan, is the one who goes and helps. The brothers, the so-called ones who of the same bloodline, they walking on the other side of the road. Go ahead.
And went to him, and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatsoever you spendeth more, when I come again, I will repay you. Which now of these 3, think you, was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves?
Right. Now, consider the beginning of this. He says in verse 29, but he willing to justify himself said unto Yahshua, and who is my neighbor? Because see, there's a whole lot of people that, and I've heard various teachings, that their neighbor is only their particular people in the word that they like. So Yahshua was actually cutting him up with this statement. See, and a lot of times this is how we get into trouble. In verse 28, he said unto him, and you answered right, this do and you shall live. But this is typical Israel. Verse 29, but he willing to justify himself. We need to learn, first of all, when to shut up. So because he now trying to justify himself, now he says something else. And understand, all of this right here was cutting him up. Go ahead and finish that, brother.
You know, and that's the same thing with this fringes, so they can identify who's their neighbor, and the mezuzah, so they on the other side, the ish can.
Right, so I know who
neighbor
to be good to.
Right.
Yeah, but then the word tells us some of you have entertained angels unawares. So you think the angel gonna have a mezuzah at his door? You think the angel gonna walk around with fringes on so you'll know, oh, I better treat him good as an angel. Look at him. But he glowing. Let me treat him good. No. What if that's that homeless brother walking down the street? And see, some of us will help homeless people if they look just like us. Now, we see a white homeless person, we be like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Y'all had 400-year head start. I'm sorry. Look, I had to get my mind right, too. I'd be like, wait a minute now. You did have 400-year head start now, man. All right, I'm going to give you a little something, man. Hey, y'all had a couple 100-year head start now. Y'all shouldn't be as broke as us now. Something got to give. Did you finish that, bro?
Verse 37. And he said, he that showed mercy on him. Then said Yahshua unto him, go and do you likewise.
But understand, that angel can appear in any flesh or form that he chooses. So let's say you put limitations or you don't do something. And if that very was an angel, you're going to have to answer for that. All because of what you saw in the flesh. There are situations that are written in this book that they didn't know they were angels until after the whole situation was over. After the brother disappeared in a ball of fire. You pretty much know there wasn't no brother there. Yeah. Too late to ain't no undoing it now.
Hey, fireman, come back. I'm sorry. Fireman.
No, it's too late now. Whatever you didn't do, you're not going to do. It's a done deal. So then we have to consider how we learn things. The Messiah says, whosoever will not receive this kingdom as a little child will not enter into this kingdom. And children can be taught. Children don't act in malice the way grown people do. Children will fight at the slime board and be back friends by the time they get to the monkey bar. It's the grown-ups that have issues. And what's interesting is to watch when two children get into it and then watch how the parents act within that situation. Now the kids then became friends. Now the parents is over there giving the kids pointers.
Next time you go down that sliding board, I want you to kick him in the shin. Kick him right there. See, this is the tender part. Kick him right there in the tender parts.
What? The kids already done made up and going on about their business. That's the thing about children. That's why he didn't share this word with the wise of the earth and give them unto babes. Because they're going to deal better with it than the so-called wise of the earth. Because they're going to take their wisdom and it's going to eat them up. They ain't going to be able to deal with the word right. Because that malice is going to take place of it. Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 1. It says, better is a poor and a wise child than an old and foolish king who will no more be admonished. He's a king, but you can't tell him that. He won't be admonished. He won't be corrected. And one thing you have to understand within this word, we will never be above correction. Yahshua corrected his own disciples constantly. And if we don't allow ourselves to get be placed in that place of correction, then there's a certain amount of growth we are never going to achieve. Because there's certain trials that the way that they are put together, we're going to fail them that first time. And Yahshua know it. But then he cover us even within that fall. Go ahead.
Cephas, an apostle of Yahshua the Mashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, elect according to the foreknowledge of Elohim the Father, through sanctification of the Spirit, unto obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Yahshua the Mashiach. Grace unto you and peace be multiplied. Blessed be the Elohim and Father of our Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach, which according to his abundant mercy has begotten us again unto a lively hope by the resurrection of Yahshua the Mashiach from the dead.
So if he has begotten us again, then we have been born again. He has begotten us again. We have been born again unto a lively hope by the resurrection of Yahshua the Mashiach from the dead. Go ahead.
To an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled, and that fadeth not away, reserved in heaven for you, who are kept by the power of Elohim through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time, wherein you greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, you are in heaviness through manifold temptations, that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perish, through it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Yahshua the Mashiach, whom having not seen you love, in whom, though now you see him not, yet believing you rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of glory.
Right, because it is a greater deed to love Yahshua and not have seen him. For the ones that have seen him, it is not as much love because they were able to see him physically with their own eyes. They were able to see him walk around after all of these things. But for those who are able to believe without seeing, it is a greater deed. Go ahead.
Receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your souls, of which salvation the prophets have inquired and searched diligently, who prophesied of the grace that should come unto you, searching what, or what manner of time the Spirit of the Mashiach which was in them did signify, when it testified beforehand the sufferings of the Mashiach and the glory that should follow, unto whom it was revealed that not unto themselves, but unto us they did minister the things which are now reported unto you by them that have been preached, them that have preached the gospel unto you with the Holy Spirit sent down from heaven, which things the angels desire to look into.
Which things the angels desire to look into. So let it not be a strange thing unto us to believe that those evil angels have helped these kingdoms do some of the things that they have done. Lucifer got his angels, and he building his kingdom up, and Yahweh is building his up. Go ahead.
Wherefore gird up the loins of your mind, be sober, and hope to the end for the grace that is to be brought on to you at the revelation of Yahshua the Mashiach.
Gird up the loins of your mind. That means you ain't letting everything penetrate your brain and your heart. Gird up the loins of your mind, so everything don't get to go in there. See, as a parent, you have to learn when you come through and you see your kids looking at something and you know your kids, turn it off. Because I know you ain't going to go sleep tonight after you watch that. Why? Because it's going to get in their head. You got to know enough about yourself that you start watching something, before you know it, now you questioning everything in the doctrine. Right? You ain't girded up the loins of your mind. You done let some strange stuff get in there, and now you questioning who you are in the word. Listening to everybody. Everybody who got a mouth ain't worth listening to. And I don't care how articulate they are, how good it sounds. Go ahead.
Verse 14. As obedient children, not fashioning yourselves according to the former lust in your ignorance. But as he which has called you is holy, so be you holy in all manner of conversation. Because it is written, be you holy, for I am holy. And if you call on the Father, who without respect of person judges according to every man's work, pass time of your sojourning here in fear.
Pass the time of your sojourning here in fear. If you understand that there is a righteous judgment that has to happen on each and every last one of us. But if you believe you just gonna zip tang float up to heaven, you ain't really worried about nothing. You're not worried about getting anything cleared up. You're not worried about getting anything straightened out, because you just gonna float off the Neverland. Go ahead.
For as much as you know that you were not redeemed with corruptible things, as silver and gold, from your vain conversation received by tradition from your fathers.
Right. Because if we walked in the vain tradition that we received from our mothers and fathers, we would have been at Turkey Day a couple days ago, celebrating the killing off of a bunch of natives. And everybody's sitting there talking about, what you thankful for? I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for such and such. Yeah, what you thankful for? I'm thankful I'm not an Indian. Read, man.
But with the precious blood of the anointed one, as of a lamb without blemish.
Boy, that'll change the whole get-together right there. That will stop the whole get-together. Everybody in there be looking at you like, what? No, wait a minute. Right. I'm thankful I'm not them. Y'all killed all them off. Right. But they want to make this holiday seem so precious and family-oriented. Ain't this the anniversary of your killing a whole bunch of people off? Ain't that what that is? And I'm celebrating that. Why again? Go ahead.
But with the precious blood of the anointed one, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot, who verily was foreordained before the foundation of the world, but was manifest in these last times for you, who by him do believe in Elohim, that raised him up from the dead and gave him glory, that your faith and hope might be in Elohim. Seeing you have purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit unto unfeigned love of the brethren. See that you love one another with a pure heart, fervently.
Right. Do we have the ability to do that? Never mind looking at the word and finding out, okay, this is the Sabbath. This is the day we keep the Sabbath. These are the holy days. Yeah. Do we have the ability to love one another fervently? Read.
Being born again, not of corruptible seed, but of incorruptible, by the word of Elohim, which lives and abides forever. For all flesh is as grass, and all the glory of man as the flower of grass. The grass withers, and the flower thereof falls away. But the word of the Adonai endures forever. And this is the word which by the gospel is preached unto you.
All right. Let's go to Romans chapter 6. Romans chapter 6, and let's start that at verse 1.
What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin, that grace may abound? Elohim forbid. How shall we, that are dead to sin, live any longer therein? Know you not, that so many of us as were baptized into Yahshua the Mashiach were baptized into his death?
Know you not, that so many of us as were baptized into Yahshua the Mashiach were baptized into his death. So then we are baptized in the name of the Mashiach. So you see how the adversary sought out to disrupt us being purified by Yahshua. So first he throws in a false name and gets millions upon millions of people baptized in the wrong name. Then he sends different doctrines about the baptism. So then you got brothers out here teaching that you're cleansed with the word, and they'll take bits and pieces of that word and use it out of context. But then you read, then it's talking about born again. You ain't born again through the word. See, the word cleanses you as you are reading the word and you allow the spirit of that word to reshape your life. That has nothing to do with you being born again. That's something altogether different. See? So the adversary has pushed all of these things so that they can slow down the righteousness of the children of Israel, relearning the things that we once already knew. See, this is the whole thing about it. Everything that we're doing is all to get back something that we already had. Ain't none of this new stuff. It's new to us. But we already had this. All of this stuff about living in our own land and being able to worship our Elohim in peace without having to pay tribute to other nations. We already had that. We're doing all of this to get back what was already ours. Go ahead.
Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as the Mashiach was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. For if we have been planted together in likeness of his death, we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection.
Right. And the new body that was raised up with Yahshua was a better body. In our new man, it should be a better man. It should be a better individual. It doesn't mean that we're not, it's going to be a process that we're going to have to go through some things. It's not like the entire you is going to change. Yahweh is going to use those things if you let him. Go ahead.
Knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. For he that is dead is freed from sin. Now if we be dead with the Mashiach, we believe that we shall also live with him, knowing that the Mashiach, being raised from the dead, dies no more. Death has no more dominion over him. For in that he died unto sin once. But in that he lives unto Elohim. Likewise, reckon you also yourselves to be dead indeed unto sin, but alive unto Elohim through Yahshua the Mashiach, our Adonai. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that you should obey it in the lust thereof.
Right. If sin reigns in your physical body, then sin is directing you. Go ahead.
Neither yield you your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto Elohim as those that are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto Elohim. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for you are not under the law, but under grace.
Mm-hmm.
What then? Shall we sin because we are under the law?
Because we are
Not under the law, pardon me, but under grace? Elohim forbid.
Right. And all of these things were taken out of context. And this is one of those things in which our people were then taught that we could do anything. We are not under the law of sin and death. The law of sin and death is whenever there was sin, there had to also then be death. So whenever there was a sin, we had to go and kill an animal, shed its blood to make an atonement for our sins. That is the law of sin and death. We are not under that law, but under the grace of Yahshua's death being a perpetual sacrifice for us. That don't allow you to just keep on sinning just because you don't have anything to kill. But that's not how that thing is taught on Sunday morning. Go ahead.
Verse 16. Know you not that to whom you yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants you are to whom you obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness? But Elohim be thanked that you were the servants of sin, but you have obeyed from the heart that form of doctrine which was delivered you.
You have obeyed from the heart the form of doctrine which was delivered unto you. Now we have to ask ourselves, have we done that? Have we obeyed the doctrine that was delivered unto us? Or do we let that old man keep inching right back in? Go ahead.
Being then made free from sin, you became the servants of righteousness. I speak after the manner of men because of the infirmity of your flesh. For as you have yielded your members servants to uncleanness and to iniquity, unto iniquity, even so now yield your members servants to righteousness, unto holiness. For when you were the servants of sin, you were free from righteousness. What fruit had you then in those things whereof you are now ashamed?
But are we ashamed? Go ahead.
For the end of those things is death. But now being made free from sin and become servants to Elohim, you have your fruit unto holiness, and the end everlasting life. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of Elohim is eternal life through Yahshua the Mashiach, our Adonai.
So the eternal life comes through Yahshua. Then there's a way that we have to deal with that. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. See, we can't just do that any old kind of way. First Corinthians chapter 10, and we're going to read verses 1 through 22.
Moreover, brethren, I would not that you should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea. And were all baptized unto Moshe in the cloud and in the sea.
Right. So then they count this walking through this wall of water as a baptism, as a cleansing, even coming out of Egypt. Then you consider when Yahweh wanted to cleanse the earth before, it was flooded. Complete covering of water. Yet we got people still walking around teaching that there's no such thing as baptism. See, you got to be able to recognize when something comes from the adversary of the devil. I don't care how articulate it sounds. I don't care how fancy their outfits look. You got to be able to recognize when something comes from the devil. And you got to stop thinking that everything that sounds aggressive or something that you don't like comes from the devil. Because the devil going to say some of the nicest, smoothest things you ever did want to hear. Go ahead.
And did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was the Mashiach. But with many of them Elohim was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness.
Understand, we got a wilderness that we got to go to. So, we read this stuff like it's past tense and it's not anything that we have to deal with. I don't think we consider it. Your turn coming. It's real easy to look at all the other stuff. Yeah, they did that. We love to look at the word from, that other tent. Yeah, them. Look at that. Look at them. Them and them. Look at them. They. Those. Oh, okay. You gonna get your opportunity. Go ahead.
Now these were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be you idolaters, as were some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000.
See, and it's going to take something like that for Israel to understand some things. But then, what are we going to do? Are we going to attribute it to some natural thing when it happened? 23,000 people fall at one time?
But it was a gas that came out of the earth, and the gas choked them all out.
Right. Go ahead.
Neither let us tempt the Mashiach, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents.
Right. We'll find an excuse.
See, they didn't have on the ankle high boots. That's why the serpents bit them. See, if they would have had on high boots, they wouldn't have got them.
Right. Go ahead.
Neither murmur you, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer.
Right. And we're the most murmuring people you ever did want to encounter. We don't like this. We don't like that. We so good, and especially with technology, we can murmur without saying a thing. We murmur on the internet. We write our murmurings.
I don't like this mess. Post. I'm not going to do that. Post.
Okay. Go ahead.
Now all these things happened unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore let him that thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But Elohim is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it.
Right. So consider, when you get into something, what's really powerful is waiting until afterwards. And like I said, there's some things that you need to examine afterwards, so you can look and see, okay, how many opportunities did Yahweh provide for me to get out of this? That's how you figure some things out. Because see, when you're in the moment, it's hard to figure all that out because your feelings is just driving you, and you ain't even in control of the car no more. But then after that situation, back up. Examine the situation and see just how many opportunities, how many openings did he provide for me to get out of this situation? But the feelings took hold, and instead of, okay, if you just be quiet right here, you can slide out of there.
Yeah, but I can't do it. I got to say something.
Done deal. Done deal. Just ignore that one. All right, he coming up. It's like an exit on the highway. You coming up. All right, I already know I ain't got but a quarter tank of gas. I ain't got but a quarter tank. You know what I'm saying? I got to figure this out. Here go exit. Here go exit. Oh, man, I done missed that exit. Now, hey, ain't no telling how long you going to get to the next exit now. And what happened if that was the last opportunity for you to get off that evil, angry highway that you've been on? And you've been riding this evil, angry highway. Mink, mink. At some point, you're going to have to get off this evil, anger highway. Or you're going to be destroyed on that evil, anger highway. Look back and see how many exits he gave you. Then you're going to notice the mercy of Yahweh. That even while you was riding full speed on evil, angry highway, he kept providing you exits. My son, there go an exit. My daughter, you can get off here. I wouldn't go down that hill if I were you. And we keep going. And if you learn from that one, then the next time you find yourself on evil, angry highway, you start looking for the exit. Wait a minute, there's an exit over here somewhere. There's an exit over here somewhere. Wait a minute, there's an exit over here somewhere. I got to be prepared. There's an exit over here. Because he's going to provide a way for me to get out of this temptation. There is a way for me to get off of this thing. And I'm looking for it. It ain't going to catch me off guard like it did last time. I know it's over here somewhere. I'm going to find this thing. I'm getting off this. I'm not going to find myself on this road for 5 years. Done lost 4-5 years of my life being on evil, angry highway. Go ahead, bro.
You know, it's like you mentioned that sometimes we just don't know when to be quiet. We don't know when to discern what is a statement and when is a question. There's a certain situation, you listen to what they're saying, that was a statement, I ain't got nothing to say.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just feel like, I got to say something.
Oh, yeah, I got to answer back.
Right.
Got to have last word. Got to have last word. See, he who answers last wins. So, hey, now I got to get the trophy. Right? You find out sometimes that trophy is entitled damnation. Here you go. You get the damnation trophy. Congratulations. Right? Wasn't so much of a prize, was it? Go ahead.
Verse 14. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry. I speak as to wise men. Judge you what I say. The cup of blessing which we bless, is it not the communion of the blood of the Mashiach? The bread which we break, is it not the communion of the body of the Mashiach? For we being many are one bread and one body, for we are all partakers of that one bread. Behold, Israel after the flesh, are not they which eat of the sacrifices partakers of the altar? What say I then? That the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to idols is anything? But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to Elohim. And I would not that you should have fellowship with devils.
Right. And all you do is do the research on any of their holidays that they have given unto us, and you're going to find the demonic stuff that's connected to every last one of them. And most of them got certain foods connected to all of their little rituals. And that pig is in almost everything. But see, what we want to do is mix those things together. Go ahead.
You cannot drink the cup of the Adonai and the cup of devils. You cannot be partakers of the Adonai's table and of the table of the devils. Do we provoke the Adonai to jealousy? Are we stronger than he?
Right. So consider, when we partake in those things, do we consider that we provoke this one who has suffered greatly for our sins? Are we then provoking him because we want to go and hang out with our family? Let's go to John chapter 10. Yohanan chapter 10. And we're going to read verses 1 through 18.
Yohanan chapter 10 and verse 1. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that enters not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbs up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber.
Mm-hmm.
But he that enters in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he puts forth his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers.
Right. So when people hear strange doctrine and they follow that doctrine, you have to ask yourself, how were you fooled by that doctrine? Because his sheep know his voice. So when they hear a strange doctrine, they say, that's not my father's voice. See, sheep can't see that good. They know by hearing. And if you ever been to a farm, you'll find that they'll call the sheep by voice. They just follow the voice. They keep talking, and they all come running to where the voice is. So when we hear strange doctrine, how do we get pulled off? See, it has to be a point that you have spiritual discernment, that you start recognizing what is the voice of your father and what ain't. No matter who's talking. The voice is contained in the doctrine, not the individual who's speaking. Go ahead.
This parable spake Yahshua unto them, but they understood not what things they were which he spake unto them. Then said Yahshua unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me if any man enters in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture.
Right. So if he's the door that we have to go through, then we have been presented with a baptism in his name that then is that door that we have to go through. Go ahead.
The thief comes not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy.
Right. And when we consider these strange doctrines that float around that's talking about there's no baptism, do understand the things that they do present. You don't have to get a baptism, but you got to buy their clothing. You got to buy they this. Oh, they getting rich selling their own apparel. That you got to get their shirts. You got to get their articles of clothing. See? So now they are making merchandise. See, the thief comes not but to kill and destroy. See? He's killing them off by merchandising them. See, what we say is, okay, we need to dress in culture. But I didn't tell y'all had to buy from my store. I say you need to come in here dressed like the culture that we keep. But I ain't tell you got to buy it. No, you can buy the culture. You can only buy it from suck.com. I didn't tell you that. Go ahead, bro.
No, I just wanted to say, and even about being part of that body. I mean, how else are we going to be part of that body of Yeshua if we don't get that baptism?
Brother, it is a strange doctrine. And at some point, it should start burning people's ears. It should get so hot in your ear when you hear strange things that you just stop listening. But see, curiosity killed that cat. That's how the cat got killed. I want to go in and find meow. I want to go here and find out what they're talking about. Meow. And then get over there and too late now. Too late now. See, you little curious cat. That's why. Now you got 8 lives left. You about to right. Go ahead, bro.
I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. But he that is an hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not,
right, the sheep not his. Go ahead.
Sees the wolf coming, and leaves the sheep, and flees, and the wolf catches them, and scatters the sheep.
Right. He's not going to put himself in danger for the sheep because he don't really care about them like that. He's making merchandise of the sheep. As long as the sheep bring him money, he really don't care about the sheep. But he talk about love and all of these things. He don't care about the sheep. Go ahead.
The hireling flees because he's an hireling and cares not for the sheep.
Right. He was hired to do a job. See, it would really surprise our people to find out how many black churches are owned by other churches. You think you're going into one organization and you're going into a whole different organization. Go ahead.
I am the good shepherd and know my sheep, and I am known of mine. As the Father knows me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them also I must bring.
Right. And somebody need to tell them purple people that there are other sheep which I have, which are not of this fold. So all of the people who Yahweh is going to save don't go to church with you. If you believe that the only people that are saved are going to be the people in this room, you can't believe in Yahweh. Do you believe that my God is so small that he's only dealing with the people who are in this room? Keep letting your pocket God fool you. Read, man.
And they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Therefore does my Father love me, because I lay down my life that I might take it again. No man takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This commandment have I received of my Father.
All right, let's go to our 2 Corinthians chapter 5. See, we have to really understand what all of these things mean to be born again, begotten of him. And without this baptism, we have to consider how many things we have left on the table. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, and let's read verses 10 through 21.
For we must all appear before the judgment seat of the Mashiach.
Stop. What was told before was we were gonna float off into heaven. We were gonna be sitting there while judgment happened on the earth, and then we were gonna float back down, and we were gonna miss everything. So when you teach that, you don't have to answer for anything. The New Testament says we must all appear before the judgment seat. And if you don't understand that, you are not preparing yourself. Ain't nothing worse than somebody who got a court date and acting like they ain't got none. When you got a court date, you prepare yourself for your court date. You don't just go to court in old kind of way. You need to have you some court clothes. Have you some court shoes. And you need to have you a court mindset. You need to be ready. Do you even know what happens in court? Have you ever just went to the courthouse and just sat in there and watched? Oh, it's some interesting stuff to happen in court. You better stop looking at this stuff on TV. It's some very interesting things. If you know you got to go there, you might want to go there before you got to go. So if you understand that there is a judgment seat that we have to sit and we have to go and appear before, you might want to find out, okay, what kind of stuff they're going to be judging at this judgment seat. Then you might want to open your book. At least you be one of them surprise people in court.
Excuse me, hold on. I'm sorry. God, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. I didn't know they're gonna judge us on that.
Well, then you have a book.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but I didn't read the book per se myself. I let my pastor read it to me. He didn't read that part.
Right. So, in other words, you standing here before the judgment seat, but you ain't ready for judgment. No, man, I don't want that. Go ahead.
Verse 10, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of the Mashiach, that everyone may receive the things done in his body.
So if you allow somebody to trick you to do something with your body, if you allow a spirit to trick you to do something in that body, you still gonna receive judgment for the things that's done in that body. Go ahead.
According to that he has done, whether it be good or bad.
Knowing
therefore the terror of the Adonai, we persuaded men, for we are made manifest unto Elohim, and I trust also are made manifest in your conscience. For we commend not ourselves again unto you, but give you occasion to glory on our behalf, that we may have somewhat to answer them which glory in appearance and not in heart. For whether we be beside ourselves, it is to Elohim, or whether we be sober, it is for your cause. For the love of the Mashiach constraineth us, because we thus judge that if one died for all, then were all dead. And that he died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves, but unto him which died for them and rose again.
Consider that. Pause on that. And that he died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves, but unto him which died for them and rose again. So your life has to have more purpose than just you. Go ahead.
Wherefore henceforth know we no man after the flesh. Yea, though we have known the Mashiach after the flesh, yet now henceforth know we him no more. Therefore, if any man be in the Mashiach, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. And all things are of Elohim, who hath reconciled us to himself by Yahshua the Mashiach.
Right. And when you deal with reconciliation, you're dealing with the atonement sacrifice. If he has reconciled us, he has made atonement for us by the shedding of his own blood. Go ahead.
And has given to us the ministry of reconciliation, to wit, that Elohim was in the Mashiach, reconciling the world unto himself, not imputing their trespasses unto them, and has committed unto us the word of reconciliation. Now when we are ambassadors for the Mashiach, as though Elohim did beseech you by us, we pray you in the Mashiach's stead, be you reconciled to Elohim.
Right. Constant atonement, atonement, atonement. And what we constantly talk about is forgiveness. Forgiveness is step one. Atonement is the thing that comes after that. Go ahead.
For he has made him to be sin for us, who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of Elohim in him.
All right, but let us hear the conclusion of this matter. Let's go to Romans chapter 13. Romans chapter 13, and we're going to read verses 1 through 14. See, a lot of times we read a lot of things in the Old Testament to get the foundation, but people are not aware how many false doctrines you can bust up from right inside this New Testament. You know, you're talking to these people, and anytime you get to mentioning anything out of the Old Testament, they automatically turn their ear off. Oh, I don't want to hear that. That's that bondage. That's that bondage. You're reading from that bondage. I don't want to hear nothing from that bondage. There is so much you can tear up from inside this New Testament. And the book of Acts tells up so many doctrines, it is absolutely pitiful. This is why the people who are misteaching, they have to read half verses or one or two verses and then get out of that book. Because if you would just keep reading where they stop, it will bust up most doctrines that are being taught. Don't pay attention to what's read. Pay attention to what's not read. Keep reading where they stop. Romans chapter 13, and let's read verses 1 through 14.
Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of Elohim. The powers that be are ordained of Elohim. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of Elohim, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation.
Right. Now, some people use that to say, follow the government. Let me tell you something. You can not resist the power, but still not deal with the evil that is done in that place. Imagine you're trying to fight against America, and Yahweh has said it's going to stand for 300 years, and you try to fight against it in year 100. You're not going to win. Why would you resist the power? It ain't time. Go sit down somewhere, because you're going to die. I don't care how much emotion you put into it. If it ain't time for a thing to fall, your emotion ain't gonna make it fall. Go ahead.
For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Will you then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and you shall have praise of the same.
Mm-hmm.
For he is the minister of Elohim to thee for good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do that which is evil, be afraid. For he bears not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of Elohim, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that does evil.
Right. So when Yahweh ended up telling Moshe to go and do these things in Egypt, then right after that, the angel sought to kill him. Because he had given him as much time. His grace period had expired. He had a grace period to get those children circumcised. It was a foreign woman. His wife did not like the circumcision. Yada, yada, yada. Yahweh gave it enough time. But he know enough about Israel to know, hey, look here. When you make it over there, and you got these two little uncircumcised boys, Israel gonna eat you alive. You better take care of this business before you get there. You better take care of this business. Cause I know your people. Ben, you know your people. They gonna kill you. Go ahead.
So they had two other occasions against him besides the foreign woman, huh?
Right. You know, Israel be looking for something to stirring you up about. And anything we can find, we do it. Man that lived in a foreign land 40 years, and we got a problem because he got a foreign wife. What? What is wrong with us? Go ahead, man.
Verse 5. Wherefore you must needs be subject, not only for anger, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay you tribute also, for they are Elohim's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing.
Mm-hmm.
Render therefore to all their dues. Tribute to whom tribute is due.
Right.
Custom to whom custom.
So if it's taxes that's got to be paid, if it's offerings that's got to be made, pay what you're supposed to pay. Go ahead.
Fair to whom fair, honor to whom honor. Owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loves another has fulfilled the law.
Now, when you consider this, render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due. Remember how they tried to set up the Mashiach? Should we pay tribute unto Caesar? See, that'd be like somebody coming here. Hey, brother, since we are, free Israel, brother, should we pay taxes to the man? Well, you better pay your taxes and go to jail. Don't come in. Don't come calling me. And you call me, collect call from such and such. Will you accept? No. I told that brother to pay his taxes. Because, see, we get some people that come in here and they start talking. And I know where they're coming from. Talking about the birth certificate and talking about all these things. Yeah. That's all fine and dandy. But let me tell you something. You playing that game, these people play by a different set of rules. We have rights. We have all of these things. Don't none of that mean nothing when you in the back of an alley and that police got a gun and you don't. You can be hollering about your rights all you want. There's a lot of people who got rights and they rightfully in the ground right now. Learn when to shut up. It's better to have rights and live. Go ahead.
Verse 9. For this, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not kill, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, you shall love your neighbor as yourself.
Right. So if anybody confused about what love is, see, love is not that little mushy thing that we just gonna stare off in each other's eyes all day.
You hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up.
Now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna keep these commandments toward one another. That's love. Go ahead.
Love works no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is fulfilling of the law.
Right.
Is
It
the
says-
fulfilling
it
of the
says-
law.
It says, Israel, we are instructed out of the law. So our problem is a lot of times we don't see the love that's in the law. Go ahead.
And that, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed.
Right. At least we end up being surprised that these things come upon us and we're not ready. It comes to that point and we get called onto the wedding feast and we ain't got no oil. Go ahead.
The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk honestly, as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and envying. But put you on the Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach, and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof.
But put you on the Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. So what we do is create a little opening for a little sinful outing.
Like I'm gonna sin right here. I'm gonna make me a little pocket right here. So when I get right here, I'm gonna make this quick left turn. There's a little quick left sin. I'm gonna sin and I'm gonna jump back on highway of righteousness. I'm gonna be off so quick. If they blink, they're not even gonna know I got off the highway of righteousness. Right. Now we've made an occasion for it. And that's presumptuous. Because we scheduled it. We have to consider these things because that old man is not going to be able to do the things that Yahshua is calling on Israel to do. Several times we read where the angel of Yahweh is with us and we're able to go and fight these battles and we're able to win. But as soon as we bring forth that which is cursed into our house, the angel walks away. And we lose every battle from that point on until we remove the cursed thing and then the angel comes back in amongst us. Now, what if the cursed thing is the thing that we got in our heart? And you trying to look for clothing and all kind of articles, but you carrying the curse. Now that angel got to stand outside your door and just sit there and look at you and wait for you to get it out your heart. And he ain't coming in until you get it out. Let us consider those things. That's all that we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.